Bitcoin, a new type of currency to revolutionize the world. A decentralized technology allowing no entity to have control over it. The biggest transfer of wealth that mankind will experience in the 21st century.
Damn Bitcoin, so it's the most emotionally charged asset I have seen across the financial market. I mean, you just have to look at Twitter or Reddit to just see how emotionally charged and emotionally attached people are to this asset, positively or negatively. Now, why is there so much emotion attached to that asset, and why is the asset mainly driven by emotions? Because there is a sense of revolution, okay? So that completely eradicates the common sense of the market. So Bitcoin has been the hot topic for the last 2 years, and I've received hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people asking me my personal opinion on Bitcoin. So here we go in today's video. Before that though, I'd like to warn you that I do not consider myself a crypto expert, for the simple reason that I don't actively trade large funds in this asset as I would do with FX, for instance. So you know I like to go back to the core principle of things. And Bitcoin is essentially two things: a blockchain technology and a perceived currency. The blockchain technology of Bitcoin could have enormous applications in the near future. It could be used in electronic contracts, voting, money transfers, medical records, so many things. However, where I think a lot of people get confused is that the ownership of the Bitcoin does not give you ownership of the blockchain technology. It's exactly the same as having 10k on a debit card, MasterCard. That 10k does not give you a part ownership in the MasterCard network, does it? Now, one of my observations with Bitcoin is that a lot of people see it as the easy opportunity for a transfer of wealth on a global scale. Now, don't get me wrong, I am convinced the money as we know it today will evolve, definitely. But I think that people imagine that by predicting this change and getting on board only on projects as Bitcoin, they will benefit from this and they will become somehow filthy rich because they have most of the Bitcoins. But I would like to clarify something that I'm sure everyone will agree on. Ultimately, who controls the government? It's the rich. Who make the laws? It's the rich. Who decides where the monetary flow goes to? It's the rich. So please explain why the fuck these people would agree to have their US dollar net worths shrinked by going into a new digital currency that will basically benefit the people that were there before, the middle class and the poorer people. At the end of the day, it's the rich that decide what is happening. So I'm afraid that huge transfer of wealth from the rich to the wise is a utopia, and I don't see that happening. So as I said, I'm sure money will evolve into a new type of digital currency, but this change in currency will not benefit the middle class and the poor. Now, something very interesting I also wanted to share with you is, when do we realize what is important and what is not? When do we realize the real value of things? When do we see people's real personality come out? And the answer to these questions is in times of crisis, which brings me to the charts.
So looking at these charts, we have the Bitcoin chart here, we have the dollar index at the bottom left, at the top right we have the S&P 500, so basically the stock market index, and on the bottom right we have the VIX, so the volatility index that just shows us the amount of volatility in the market. So since basically February, when the whole corona stuff started kicking in, obviously risk in the market started rising. But it's not until we've reached that minus 20% on stock market indices that things started looking very scary. Okay, as you may know, a bear market is characterized by a 20% drop. Okay, so until we had reached that 20%, things were, in a way, technically still looking bullish. So the big red line I've put on everywhere is basically where we started reaching those minus 20%, and things were started to look very scary, very ugly, and people started panicking. Okay, so as I told you, it's in times of crisis where we see the real personality of people. That's the image. We see what's important and what's not. Okay, so in times of panic, people are selling the stock market, okay, very aggressively to cover losses. So many different reasons. But obviously, the principle of economics is that someone's salary. Someone's profit is someone else's expense or loss, right? So money that's getting pulled out of the S&P 500 must be put somewhere else, okay? And what can we see? This whole money, okay, so we've seen that since the 11th of May, things started going very south. The VIX index of volatility picked up 80%, okay, in literally 10 days. And what can we see on the currency side? We've seen that the whole money that's being pulled out is being put in the US dollar. So when people are scared, things are not looking good, people have been putting their money in the US dollar. Now, let's look at Bitcoin, okay? So we can see, first of all, Bitcoin had dropped because of Corona, okay, stabilized. And when things were looking even uglier and people started panicking, what is the first thing they started selling? Their Bitcoin, okay? We saw this plunge, and in 3 days, Bitcoin lost 50% of its value. And if you think about it, it's quite logical in the sense that how can you justify a Bitcoin at $8,000, okay? What's the difference between Bitcoin at 8,000 or Bitcoin at 4,000? There's none really, okay? If you look at the stock market, there's a real product in a way behind it, okay? It's the 500 biggest companies, it's Apple, it's Amazon, it's the smartest people on earth, it's cash flow, right? Looking at Bitcoin, the difference between 8,000 and 4,000 can't really be justified, you know what I mean? So that just shows us that when things are not looking good, people do not hesitate to pull their money out of Bitcoin, okay? So Bitcoin is not a safe asset. The safe asset is the US dollar. And I'm not saying this because I do not believe in Bitcoin or whatsoever. I'm just saying this looking at charts. When things don't look good, people do not put their money in Bitcoin. On the opposite, people basically dump their Bitcoin and they see it as basically shit in their portfolio that they have to sell in order to cover more important stuff, such as the US dollar, the Japanese yen, gold, etc.
So the way I personally see Bitcoin as an investment opportunity is for hedging purposes. So a hedge is an investment used to compensate a loss you may incur on a other investment which is paired. So for instance, an airline company would have a constant risk because of the fluctuation of the price of oil, okay? So in order to cover this, they will buy oil. So if the price of oil goes up, of course for them it will be more difficult to do business, so they will lose money. But on the flip side, they will make money on their investments in oil. So this is a hedge. So in other words, I would be happy to own a very small portion of my portfolio in Bitcoin, so that if everything goes to shit and there's a big shift in the economy, then this Bitcoin will counterbalance the losses I may incur in other investments. But in no way I would invest in Bitcoin in order to make money, for the simple reasons that I explained in this video. So if you enjoyed this content, I would really be grateful for you to follow this channel, and I actually look forward to reading your hopefully emotionally detached comments down below. Peace.